All right, again, Tim Langmeyer. I've got 20 some odd years in the transportation business, and I have a good long stint with a national ground expedited company. So I have a pretty decent understanding on how the expedited process works, and hopefully I can help you understand it and also, in the end, make you more efficient at it and hopefully save you some money while you're doing it. All right, what are we talking about today? Expedited transportation. Succinctly defined as a shipment that has to be executed in a quicker manner than would be allowed under the normally chosen modes published, usual or customary transit times. These shipments are described as unscheduled and irregular routed, which means you don't know where they're going to happen and you don't know where they're going, unlike a lot of our other transportation that we do know when they're going to happen and we do have a chance to route them in the most efficient manner possible. Now, I want to go ahead and encourage everyone as we go through the webinar to go ahead and send your questions in. There's an opportunity to ask questions. We'll get to those at the end of the presentation. We'll also have a couple of poll questions as we go along as well. The first of which we're going to post to you now is how often do you normally expedite on average in a given month? So if you can answer that poll question for us, we'll go over those results at the end of the presentation as well. Okay, why do we expedite? Okay, before we do that, I'll go ahead and share the results of the poll. It was pretty interesting. We got some people do 10 plus a month. That's interesting. Some guys 1 to 3. It's like half of you do a good bit of expediting. So hopefully this will be of use to you guys. But and you guys know a lot of these reasons already. We'll go through them. Why do we expedite? Many times it's a customer created crisis. They need the parts. They didn't order in the proper fashion. There's some other reason why they're relying on you to pull them out of a hole there. A lot of times our transportation departments, they don't create the expedited situations, but almost every time we have to respond to the expedited situation. So we're the problem solvers in this scenario. Production and planning issues, quality issues, all these go back to things that happen outside of the norm. We didn't plan for them, but they happen. Unexpected interruptions in the supply chain. An earthquake in Japan, interrupted the supply chain in the automotive industry for over 6 months. Obviously you can't plan for that, but you do have to respond to it. And if you're receiving materials in as a manufacturer, sometimes your vendor puts you in a bad spot. But they don't have something ready when it's supposed to be, and now you're trying to work on getting your materials to you so you don't halt production or slow down another process. Ordering, purchasing issues, same thing. Somebody ordered 100 instead of ordering 1,000. They left a 0 off their purchase order. They ordered the wrong thing. All these can lead to somebody not having the proper amount of supplies to manufacture. And also the capacity issues in the transportation marketplace. I would say a regular expedited company on a given day, 25 to 40% of their business is usually some sort of a transportation marketplace capacity issue. Someone called J.B. Hunt, someone's called Schneider National and say, hey, I got a truckload for you today, and they're constrained on capacity, so they'll tell you, hey, I can't be there today, I'll be there in 4 days. Well, obviously you can't wait 4 days to get this stuff off your dock. You got to get it moving today. So those shipments usually fall down to the expedited companies. They act sort of as the safety net. Well, I'll pay more on this particular shipment to get it moving. And also there's capacity issues within the expedited business itself with the recent economic issues in the last few years. A lot of your expedited companies have shrunk in size. And now that the business is turning around and we're starting to manufacture a little more, now there's a bigger need for expedited, and they're having a hard time keeping up with demand. And in other words, adding on more capacity, adding on more trucks. So there's even a capacity crunch within the expedited business itself. And also, many of you may experience this, and this is the main reason why I usually expedite is there's a negative financial implication associated with not meeting a commitment, whether you didn't get your stuff to your customer on time or you didn't get it to somebody else that's manufacturing, they have to shut a plant down, or even in the case if you have finished product and it's going to a distribution center or a company that imposes a fine if you miss an appointment. So your regular capacity can't handle it in that speed, so you got to go to an expedited solution. And to give you some history on why all of a sudden everybody's expediting. You know, when I first started in transportation, there was not a lot of expediting. You know, everybody moved everything on LTL and truckload, and everybody was happy. But what happened back in the late 70s is the founder of Toyota wrote a book on how do you manufacture the most efficiently, and that's when just-in-time / lean manufacturing really came into vogue. And the characteristics of that philosophy really created no more warehousing, no more carrying costs, and everything made to order and shipped to the plant just in time to make it into the production process. The manufacturers up in the Midwest, that's where most of your big expedited companies are headquartered, as a matter of fact, and it's not by accident. It's because the Ford, Chrysler, GM, and their suppliers kind of embraced this philosophy then, and that's when most of your big expediters actually got into business. When they started doing these lean manufacturing process, all of a sudden they were running out of parts and said, hey, how do I get my parts? Usually my LTL company or my truckload company would just bring me some and put it in my warehouse every week, but now there were all kinds of supply chain interruptions. So that's when your FedEx Custom Criticals, Panther 2s, Tri-State Expediteds, that's how all these guys got into business, and that's where it really first originated. And that lean just-in-time manufacturing process is, has obviously transitioned into other businesses. Again, the characteristics of reducing carrying costs, not carrying inventory that you can't turn over very fast. Obviously, you eliminate brick-and-mortar warehouses and the people to man those warehouses and the tools to move stuff around. Moving stuff from warehouse to warehouse and moving it around a warehouse adds no value to your finished product. It just adds cost. So the just-in-time lean manufacturing seeks to eliminate those costs. Order parts and components as needed. You know, at one time, a purchasing agent would order enough material for them to run them through a whole month. They would order a month's worth of supplies, bring it into their warehouse, store it, and just draw down from those supplies when they needed them, and then at the end of the month, put in their next order. Well, now the ordering process is sped up to where there's 2 or 3 times a week where companies order. They just want to order just in time to get it to them and just in time for them to put it into manufacturing process. So anytime there's an interruption in that supply chain, something that slows something down, one of the steps takes longer than it should, and then all of a sudden there's an emergency, there's a crisis, hey, we got to get this stuff in faster. So, you know, you guys probably experience this on a daily basis. Say, you know, you don't create these expedited situations, but these are the reasons why you're having to respond to them. Now, we're going to talk about the different modes. You have some different options when you choose, hey, I've got an expedited shipment, somebody's calling me, I got to have this now. So now you're sitting there thinking, how am I going to do it? So these are the modes we're going to talk about today. Let me go ahead and exclude, we're not talking about expedited rail or expedited ocean shipping. And there are faster modes of doing regular service there, but that's not those aren't the modes you would use if you got to have something immediately. We're going to talk briefly about air charter. We're going to talk about some air freight and ground expedited, which a lot of this will fall into. Briefly about air charter. When I talk to people about, hey, do you know anything about air charter, or have you ever done any? The answer I mostly commonly get is that we've done it one time. Because if you do it once, you understand you don't want to do it again. It just costs a lot of money. And I picked this plane out as an example. This plane here is an air charter plane. You charter this entire plane to carry something. This is the Antonov, which can carry over 550,000 pounds of cargo, which is about 12 truckloads of freight in one plane. And it'll fly anywhere in the world that has a runway at least 2 miles long for it to take off and land. But most of our air charters aren't going to be that big, obviously. The characteristics of air charter, you know, you get the exclusive use of the plane. You get the entire plane. It is truly the fastest way to deliver a shipment, you know, especially over 1,000 miles. Air charter is much like ground expedite, where you can choose the different size of plane and a different speed of plane. If you want to get something, 1,000 miles and you got one pallet, you can choose a turboprop that's going to go about 200 miles an hour. You can choose a Learjet that's going to go 500 plus miles per hour. So you can choose the speed component and you can choose the size component. My first experience of air charter back in my Panther days, back when Firestone were having this problems with its tires exploding on the Ford Explorers, I was working with another tire company who wanted to get into that, wanted to have the opportunity to secure that business. And they had to have 1,000 tires in Yucca, Arizona, out in the desert to the test track where Ford executives and their company executives were going to meet the next day to test these tires and see how they performed. The nearest set of tires, the nearest tires in that size lot were in Atlanta, Georgia. Well, we chartered a 727 and delivered those tires to the test track in Arizona for a cost for around $47,000. So obviously, you want to avoid those situations in any way possible. But that option is there to get into a situation where you got to have it, no questions asked. It's a long distance, and it's got to happen fast. And we'll move on to ground expedited. Some of your common companies you'll see on the road out there. When I first was in transportation before I went to work in the expedited business down south here, I would see these straight trucks with sleepers on them. I had no idea what those things were. It wasn't your normal Penske truck, day cab type of truck. And I wondered, what are these trucks doing with sleepers on them? And wasn't long after that I found out these are expedited trucks. This is the workhorse. The expedited straight truck is the workhorse of the ground expedited industry. And the way I commonly, when I was trying to educate customers about ground expedited, 15 years ago, now what is expedited? Why would somebody pay your rates? Well, we were the ambulance service for freight. If you got a common cold and you got time to make an appointment at your doctor and go, you're going to take your time. You're going to go when it's convenient for everybody. But if you have some sort of an accident, you have to have stitches or you have a broken bone, obviously, you're going to go faster to get your treatment. So we're the ambulance freight for service. You call us, we come. All right, ground expedited. What are the advantages of using a ground expedited company? Most of the ground expedited companies, their internal goal, whether they tell you this or not, is to be at your place to pick up within 90 minutes of your phone call. So fast response times. If it's not 90 minutes, sometimes it's quicker, sometimes it's a little longer. But they can usually give you a clear, good, accurate estimate as when they will be there to pick up your freight. You also get exclusive use of the vehicle, which means your freight is the only freight on that truck, which is good when it's expedited because you don't want them stopping along the way and making other pickups and deliveries and delaying your freight. Also, the obvious advantage is it's not moving around, not changing trucks, no possibilities for damage or loss. Also, these trucks can be tracked real time through GPS systems where you can actually see it on a map exactly where your freight is within a couple feet. This helps you when you're planning. If you're waiting and you're a production manager and you're waiting for something to get there, you can kind of track it and see, okay, he's this far out, he's that far out, and kind of know and be expecting him when he gets there. Sometimes that's information you got to have. And mainly the main reason people pay more for expedited is for the proactive communications. These same GPS systems will continually calculate what time that truck's going to be there based on current speed. And if that time gets outside of when he was supposed to be there, and then a red flag shows up to the ground expedited operations team, and they look at it and they find out why is that truck running behind. And once they find out, their next call is to you. So you know ahead of time, hey, there's a problem. I never had a customer calling me asking me where a truck was, because if there's a problem, we've already called you. And that's the big difference between using other modes of expedited, even air freight, even LTL expedited is the ground expedited companies will call you and let you know ahead of time what the situation is, because they're prepared to go to Plan B. If they have a truck broke down 200 miles away from your facility, and you tell them the plant's going down is going to cost me $10,000 an hour, they'll go to Plan B really quick. Believe me, they'll get a tow truck and tow that truck the rest of the way and get that freight off the truck at your facility. I've even had them air charter planes if the truck was broken down further out. So they want to know what the next step is. So they're going to call you and find out if they've got some more time or they're running out of time, and they'll make plans accordingly. Also, the good thing about ground expedited carriers is they're there 24/7, 365. You can actually get a pickup made. You can call them at midnight and say, I need a truck by 2 o'clock in the morning, and go deliver direct. Well, there's no other company, transportation company, right now that has that type of service. So they can pick up and deliver at times that other companies can't do it. All right, air service providers. This is general. This is regular air freight. As everybody knows, air freight has gone under some dramatic transformations over the last several years. Familiar companies that we used to see when we were younger, Emery, Airborne, even DHL, some of these big air freight companies have all gone by the wayside. 9/11 changed the way TSA and FAA looked at air freight. The changes in the airline industry itself, even with the reduced capacity, your Pan Ams and your TWAs and your Easterns, all these guys are going out of business. Those guys provided a lot of the line haul lift for air freight companies, and those options are now gone. They're flying smaller jets, smaller opportunities to put cargo on those planes. The bigger jets usually fly in the bigger lanes, like Atlanta to LA or Chicago to Denver. The big lanes have the big planes, and the smaller lanes have the smaller planes. So your overall capacity for airlift has diminished over the years. But air freight does have its advantages as well. The smaller the shipment and the farther the distance, usually air freight is a viable option, and a lot of times it's the best option. There's probably a point, if you had to graph it out, where distance and weight, is it better to ship it via air freight versus ground expedite? I would say around 1,000 miles or more, and probably anything under 3,000 or 4,000 pounds. We'll go on an airplane, and you can get air service a lot of the time with that, and it's cheaper than doing it on a ground shipment. For instance, if you had one pallet in Charlotte and you need to go to LA, and you call me for a cargo van, that charge is going to be about $3,000 or $4,000. If I can do that on air freight, probably about $500. So you can save some money using air freight over ground expedited. A couple of drawbacks is usually they only like to deliver around a 50-mile radius of an airport, so hopefully your shipment is picking up or delivering within a 50-mile radius of an airport. And a lot of times those release times when the freight gets to the airport the next morning are set. You can only get your freight after 8 o'clock or after 9 o'clock, so there is a little bit of inflexibility there where if you needed it earlier, it's hard to get those guys to change. And communications are limited. A lot of times your freight gets bumped off the plane for whatever reason. The pilot didn't like the looks of the box. The plane got full with other stuff, and now your shipment's still sitting at the airport, but you don't realize that until the next morning when you thought the freight was going to be delivered. It's still sitting at the origin airport. So the communications are somewhat limited, and when you do hear from them, it's usually not good news. All right, let's keep on moving here. LTL, all your LTL companies now are offering an expedited service of some sort. Back when I first got in the LTL, most guys didn't deliver more than 100 or 200 miles or intrastate next day. But during the, I'd say, early, middle 90s, a lot of these companies on here, your Average, your STs, your Southeasterns in the Southeast, they would start delivering 300 miles out, 400 miles out, 500 miles out next day. So you have a lot of good options if you have to have something next day. And all these guys have, somewhat of a guaranteed option where they'll guarantee you a shipment they'll deliver at a certain day and a certain time for an upcharge. A lot of times these upcharges are pretty reasonable considering what service that you're asking them for. Another example, had a customer call me on a Thursday. They had two pallets in Denver, Colorado, need to be in New Jersey on Monday. They want to know if I could send a cargo van, and that's going to cost them about $4,000. Well, I called a local LTL company, a national LTL company, say, can you guarantee this, pick up Thursday and deliver on Monday? And the price was a fraction of the ground expedited price, less than $1,000. So, there are viable options there, and you should look at them as an opportunity. When you do have a day or two or three to work with, a lot of times your LTL guys can speed it up, cut a day off, cut 2 days off, and guarantee it. And obviously their guarantees also come with a no-pay option where if they don't make it, you don't pay for it. All right, let's go back over some key differences and characteristics, LTL expedite versus ground expedite. LTL, obviously your freight rides with other freight. So if you got something that's prone to damage or something that could get lost or several pieces, a box gets misrouted, you can actually, be in a worse situation if they damage it or they lose it. Again, ground expedite, your freight's the only stuff on the truck. It shouldn't be damaged. It shouldn't be moved. Ground expedite can deliver a lot of their stuff same day or direct service. Most of your LTL guys cannot. And the ones that do that, usually they farm that out to a ground expedited company. If you were to call XYZ LTL company and say, I got to pick up now, it needs delivered tonight, they say, yeah, we can do it, but then they'll pick up the phone and call one of your ground expediters and then mark it up and give it to you. So it's probably better to go directly to the ground expediter. Again, LTL can save you some money. You can be more cost effective if it fits your time parameters. But your LTL expedite, LTL tracking system is, hey, it left this terminal at this time, doing that terminal at that time. It's not real-time GPS. You have an idea it's between two terminals, but you don't know exactly where it is. And also, all your LTL guys have cutoff times. They got to be back to the terminal by 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon in order to make all the cut times that night. So if your expedited falls outside their range, then they can't get it. So you have to call a ground expediter who will pick up at 8 o'clock at night and deliver direct, or deliver at 3 o'clock in the morning. LTL companies generally can't meet those requirements. So if I had an expedite shipment today, how would I want to move it? What information do I need to have? Obviously, you have to have an accurate description of your shipment, specifically weight and dimensions. Whether it's air freight or ground expedite, they want to know exactly how big and how heavy a shipment they're dealing with. Also, if you need a dock high truck, understand that. If you can't load a truck on the ground, which means you can't take your freight and put it on a cargo van that doesn't move up to your dock on an even level, then request a dock high truck, because if you don't, they'll send in a smaller truck and then it won't fit. You won't be able to get it on there. Again, know what your time parameters are. The more time that you have, obviously, the more options you have, and the more opportunity you have to save some money. If you only got hours, obviously your time is limited. But if you got a day or two, you can shop around for some different options and take the most cost-effective that meets your time parameters. And communicate these requirements to your service provider as soon as possible. Even though it might not be ready till 8 o'clock tonight, but you know about it at 10 o'clock in the morning, go ahead and give them a call and say, listen, looks like I'm going to have a shipment tonight around 8 o'clock. Do you have a truck in the area? Can you get me a truck? Because expedite companies work on a first-come, first-served basis, which means the first guy to call them for a truck is the first guy who's going to get a truck. So they don't save trucks, or there aren't trucks just sitting around. So as you move later and later in the day, those trucks get taken up with other loads, and then when you call at 5 o'clock for an 8 o'clock pickup, they're out of trucks. So call them when you know as soon as possible, and it gives them more options to work with as well. Make sure you get your shipment picked up. And I would also recommend insisting on a rate and service time requirement in writing, either an email or a fax confirmation, because, again, you're paying a higher rate than normal, and you're also asking them to do something specific on the time schedule. And after the fact, most of the bad spots you get yourself into is, hey, I didn't know I was supposed to be there that time, or I didn't know I was going to be charged that much money. So make sure you get that in writing. They understand what time they got to make the pickup, make the delivery, and you understand how much it's going to cost you. And also provide accurate information for both the pickup location and the delivery location, because if anything goes wrong in a proactive communication arena there, they're going to call the person they have contact information for and let them know that there's something wrong. So if they don't have that information, you're not going to know, or somebody at your facility is not going to know, hey, there's a problem. That truck had a flat tire. That truck's not going to make it. And you won't know until the next morning when the freight should have already been there. So make sure you give them good contact information. And the other reason for the weight and dimension accuracy is due to this right here. The smaller the vehicle that a ground expediter will send into you, the smaller the charge. The bigger the vehicle, the bigger the charge. So you don't want to have 2 pallets going on a tractor trailer, and you don't want to call in a cargo van if you got 18,000 pounds. So they will spin in the smallest possible truck to handle your shipment. That way it reduces your charges. So make sure you know exactly what the dimensions and the weight, so they'll send in the right size truck. Also, in air freight, they got to know the dimensions and the weight to make sure they even fit on the plane and how much space it's going to take up on the plane to get you a rate. All right, key takeaways here. Again, we've gone over these. Know how much time you really have. Every minute counts. I would work with a provider that has extensive resources across multiple modes. Now, I would suggest a good mix between asset-based guys and maybe a service like we have internally here at M33 with TransSource, where we have relationships with people across all modes. We have access to thousands of trucks that we can find out, at a click of a mouse where all the trucks are and which ones are empty and which ones are ready to pick up and which ones can meet our service requirements. So I would have a mix of both. Have a relationship with a good asset-based carrier too, and a relationship with somebody who has relationships with a lot of different carriers. And in the end, you got to look at your time, distance, and cost considerations and choose the mode that meets the parameters you're working with. There's, again, know all your variables and know which one of these service modes fit into those variables. All right, that's it. I try to make it as quick and as concise as possible. We're looking now for questions. If you have any questions, send those over now. All right, looks like everybody knows what they're doing. Thank you. If you have any questions after this is over, feel free to, my contact information is on the screen. Feel free to contact me anytime. This webinar will be on our website probably on Monday, so if you want to go back and review something that we went over today, you'll be able to access that through our website at M33integrated.com. Thanks again for your time and your attention, and have a great day.